Starting from my left,
I'm Earl Hartzog.
David Reynolds.
Regina Agee.
Richard Jevitt, and our attorney, Dan Santee.
Sorry, City Attorney Dan Santee.
All right. The first item on the agenda right now is the consent agenda, which would be the minutes from June 25th of 2018. Everybody should have gotten a copy of that. If you would kindly take a look.
The chairman, I already looked over the minutes. They look okay to me. If nobody else has anything, I make a motion we approve them.
We have a motion, Mr. Hartog,
I'll second.
and a second from Mr. Riley. So let's have a vote, left to right,
Aye.
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 and aye. 4 ayes, and the motion passes. Okay, right now we're going to have a public hearing with the Board of Adjustment, and it will be in reference to an item that is listed here. We will receive a report from staff, the applicant, and any adjoining property owners affected by the applicant's request, and any other interested persons. Upon completion of the public hearing will be closed. The board will discuss and consider the application and may request additional information from the staff on the applicant if required. After deliberation, the board will act on the applicant's request. All right, at this time, we will have the staff present the item BOA A2018-006, a request for a variance to the Verde Enterprise Business Park Plan Development District, ordinance number 07S14A, and the 1996 Unified Development Code ordinance number 96S28, in order to permit additional signage, increased sign height, increased sign area, and increased letter logo height than what is allowed by the PDD and the UDC, located at 5601 Schertz Parkway, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas. We'll have the staff present that portion. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. So to get your bearings on the subject property, it is outlined in green here. This is Schertz Parkway and 35. This is Frost National Bank, and this is the subject property here. On August 8th, a public hearing notice was published in the San Antonio Express News, and on August 1st, 7 notices were sent to the property owners within the 200-foot red notification buffer. At this time, we've received no responses in favor or opposed or neutral to. So the subject property you can see here, identified by the yellow star, it is 5601 Schertz Parkway. It's a 2.1 acre property currently under construction of a 4-story, 71,765 square foot hotel. The property is currently zoned Planned Development District as part of the Verde Enterprise Business Park. The Verde Enterprise Business Park does specifically state that the 1996 UDC, the UDC that was in effect at the adoption of that ordinance, is to be used, not the current UDC. So the variance request, there's multiple portions of this. It's for a directional sign, a monument sign, and then 3 wall signs, one on the east, the northern, and the western facade. We're going to go through each sign individually. So this is actually an overlay of their site plan. So you can see the hotel building here, and then the red squares identify the locations of the signs. So the number 1 is the monument, number 2 is the directional, and then 3, 4, and 5 are the 3 wall signs. So the first one is the monument sign. You can see the picture at the top. This is what's currently being proposed. The request is for an 8-foot tall, 14 feet 9 and 13/16 inch wide, 118 square feet in area sign. The Verde PDD and the 1996 UDC stipulate a maximum height of 5 feet 6 inches, and the current UDC stipulates a maximum of 5 feet 6 inches. So when looking at these, we look at what they're requesting, what the Verde PDD has stipulated, the 1996 UDC, and then we throw in what the current UDC has as just a reference point of the differences from that ordinance to today's current standards. So the first request, the monument sign, it is taller than what we would currently allow and what was allowed with the Verde PDD and the 1996 UDC. The next one is a directional sign. The request is for a 4-foot tall, a little over 3 foot wide sign. The Verde PDD and the 1996 UDC stipulate a max height of 3 feet. So they're requesting a variance to have their sign a foot taller than what was allowed and what is currently allowed in our current UDC of 3 feet as well. The next one is a wall sign that's on the east facade. This is the building side that's adjacent to Schertz Parkway. The Verde PDD not only stipulates area of the sign, but also the letter and logo height. The 1996 UDC has that requirement as well. So the request that they're currently proposing is a 13 feet, 11 inch wide sign that's 3 feet, 9 3/4 inches in height, with a 53 square feet in area. The Verde PDD and the 1996 UDC stipulate 15% of wall space or 80 square feet, whichever is less. So they are under that requirement for the area. However, the 1996 UDC specifies that on this roadway classification, a maximum allowable of 18 inches, which they are proposing, they are requesting a variance for larger than that letter logo height. As a reference, our current UDC does not stipulate letter and logo height, but we do regulate the maximum allowable in facade and sign area, which they are currently proposing under. The next one is their wall sign on the north facade. It's also adjacent to Schertz Parkway. The request is for the exact same sign as the one we had just previously seen. So the requirements are still in effect. The letter and logo height, maximum allowable of 18 inches. So their request is to have an increased letter logo height than what is allowed. The next sign is their wall sign. It's the west facade adjacent to Journey's Way. This sign is actually their biggest sign. They're proposing a 15 feet, 5 inch, excuse me, I cannot read today, apologize. 4 feet tall in height, 65.47 square feet in area sign with a letter logo height of 4 feet, a little over 4 feet. For this sign, the same requirements are in effect, the maximum allowable of 18 inches. In our current UDC, we would classify this as being adjacent to an all other street, which has a maximum allowable of 10% of the facade area or 80 square feet, whichever is less. And like I had previously stated, the letter and logo height is not regulated currently. So other code requirements that they're proposing a variance to, the Verde Enterprise Business Park PDD stipulates that they're allowed to have 2 signs on their premise. 1 wall sign and 1 freestanding sign. As you've seen, they're requesting for 5 signs instead of the 1 wall sign and the 1 freestanding sign. As another just caveat, if this was being reviewed as a property in a different zoning district under our current UDC, we have a requirement that you can have your primary wall sign and then you can have 2 secondary wall signs on 3 separate facades, with the 2 secondary being 75% of the first. Their current proposal has 2 wall signs that are the same size and 1 that's a little larger, so it would not meet the 75% of the largest sign. When we reviewed this, the current proposal of the signage does violate the Verde Enterprise Business Park PDD in terms of number of signs allowable and height of the monument sign. It violates the 1996 UDC in terms of maximum letter and logo height, maximum height of a monument sign, and maximum height of a directional sign. And then just to review it as if it had these strict stipulations of the Verde PDD and the 1996 UDC, it would violate the current UDC in terms of size of the secondary wall signs, height of directional signs, maximum height of monument sign, and maximum area of monument sign. So when we started going through the questions that are in the application, the first one is, does the requested variance violate the intent of the UDC or amendments? During staff's review, We feel that the sign standards is intended to enhance property values, maintain aesthetic attractiveness, kind of give that overall feel of the adjacent properties. We did not feel that the variance does not really meet that intent of what the UDC and the Verde PDD put in place. They had, when the Verde PDD was adopted, they adopted these kind of strict standards in order to have a development that all was cohesive. And by trying to exceed the maximum allowable of number signs and height, it does violate that. The next question was, are there special conditions or restricted area, topography, or physical features that are peculiar to the subject property that are not applicable to other properties within the PDD? When we reviewed this, even though it is within the Plan Development District, we did not find that there was any special conditions or restricted area or topography on the property that makes it unique from any other properties within the Verde PDD. The next question is, does the interpretation of the provisions on the UDC deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties within the PDD that comply with the same provisions? The property has no special circumstances or unique conditions, and it does, the requested variance does conflict with the provisions of the PDD and the 1996 UDC, and even with our current UDC if we were reviewing this as a different property. So with that, during staff's review, we did not find that there was a legal hardship to allow for these increased number of signs, increased height, increased area, and we are making a recommendation of denial.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, what we'll do is we'll open this up for public hearing and have anyone that is representative of this particular issue speak. So we are open for public hearing, and is it Shelley-O? Mr. Shelley?
Yes.
Charlie? Okay. Please, and state your name and address, please.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Charlie Shalleel with Site Enhancement Services, 6001 Nimps Parkway, South Bend, Indiana. First off, thank you for allowing us to come before you this evening. I'm working with Staybridge in regards to this application. I also have Chris, and I'm going to butcher his name, Telemendez, who's the project manager for Staybridge. So if you have any questions in regards to the use of the property or any of the construction or what have you, he's here as well. First off, again, thank you for allowing us to come before you, and thank you, staff, for their very thorough report. I'm not going to walk through each sign requested in regards to what we're asking for, because I believe staff has already done that. But I just want to kind of, I guess, talk to you in regards to why we are requesting what we are. As you can tell, it's a unique property within this segment of the commercial corridor. And the reason I say that, we're the only four-story building directly at that location along the highway, along 35. Well, we're not located directly on 35. I think we can all agree, since it is a hotel property, the main draw is going to be traffic off of 35, as well as those staying in that business park area. The signage that we're asking for is going to assist motorists as a wayfinding capability. Therefore, the signage that we're asking for, and specifically the wall signs, at the elevation that we're asking for and the size that we're asking for, are going to be extremely important for motorists, whether they're traveling west on 35 or east on 35, as well as even southbound from Lookout on Schertz Parkway. The signage that we're asking for is going to be extremely important. Now, in looking at the multiple different codes that apply to this property, whether it's the PDD, the 96 UDC, or even today's UDC, the signage that we're asking for, the letter height, and I know that in the code, the way that staff has interpreted, the logo and letter height is all one. The lettering that we're asking for on 2 of the 3 facade signs is 18 inches tall. Now, the bridge that is part of our federally registered trademark logo does exceed and is more around the 3-foot mark, but the lettering is actually only 18 inches. And it's also only 53 square feet. We're talking about signage that's on a building 4 stories tall, so it's intended to be viewed from a greater distance. Signage needs to be of a size that is going to be easily recognizable to the motorists that are traveling on 35. We're asking for the 3 facade sign, one on the north facade, again for people within the business park that are traveling south on Schertz Parkway, and then a sign on the east facade, which is over the front door at 53 square feet for motorists that are traveling westbound on 35, and then a sign that's on the west elevation for motorists that are traveling eastbound on 35. The monument sign that we're asking for, is it over code? It's over code in regards to height, but if you look at only the cabinet area of the sign itself, it's 50 square feet. The monument base is another 45 square feet. So right there, we're up to 95. And if you measure everything in a rectangle, and I do have, can I hand this out because it may be a little more useful in visualizing? 2, 3, 4. I apologize, I'm throwing dimensions. If I could have you to turn to page 3 of 10. This is the one that shows the monument sign, and this goes, I guess, just a little bit more into what I was speaking about. The cabinet itself that actually says Staybridge Suites is 50 square feet. The base itself is 45 square feet, so that gives it that additional height. And the reason that we're asking for the height, wow, look at all this technology. The reason that we're asking for that additional height is just for the fact that this is the sole ingress-egress point into the entire property. So you can imagine with trucks, with SUVs, with what have you, we're looking to get the message up above the frame of the car so people can actually, thank you. Perfect, thank you very much, sir. So this would allow that visibility and that notification. But again, is this the most important sign that we have on this property? Absolutely not. It's the facade signs. So when we're looking at the facade signs, and I did some calculations, and I know that staff used the UDC numbers as well, but when we're looking at the square footage of the elevations themselves and the signage that we're asking for, I'm just going to real quickly walk through these. When you're looking at this facade, and again, I only took this tower section right here, so this middle section. When we look at what 12% of that tower would be, it's 200 square feet. We're asking for 53 square feet. We're asking for coverage area of 3.2 square feet. I'm sorry, 3.2% coverage area on this east elevation. And again, that's only the tower. That's not the whole length and width. So, I mean, if it's a length and width, we're talking probably a 0.02%. We're at 3.2% coverage area on that east elevation. When we're looking at the, this would be the north elevation, and again, only taking this tower, we're looking at 5.2% coverage area. And I guess, just real quick while I have it up on screen, this was what I was talking about in regards to the actual letter height. The letter height of the S is 18 inches. Now, the overall bridge is 3 foot 9 3/4 inches from top to bottom. But again, the letter height is only 18 inches. So it meets within the UDC. Well, the 96 UDC and the original PDD, just not the fact that the overall logo is being counted. And then when you look at the west elevation, which again is the largest sign that we're asking for, and when I say largest, I hate to even use that word because it's still only 65 square feet. The letter height is 20 inches tall. As you can see here, well, when it focuses, is only 20 inches tall. And again, just taking this section of the building, we're asking for 5% coverage area. So the signs for the massive size of this building, the facade signs are truly very small. If we were to follow the regulations that were put in place with the original PDD and the UDC, we'd be allowed one wall sign and one ground sign. And that wall sign, we wouldn't be able to accomplish our federally registered trademark logo because you're counting the bridge height. Well, that would bring the overall letter height to about 4 inches tall, which I would hope we could agree that a traveling on 35 with the complex traffic maneuvers and the road speed, that sign's not going to be visible. It's not going to have the intended wayfinding assistance to the motorist. So in this application, we're respectfully requesting review and approval on the facade signs as presented. The monument sign, honestly, we're asking for the 8 feet tall and the cabinet and the base as proposed. But is that sign as important to us as the wall signs? Absolutely not. The wall signs are definitely more important. And on the directional sign, I believe staff has agreed that the logo is fine. Then we're asking for the 1 foot in height. If the board wants us to come down to 1 foot in height and the direction will be completely code compliant, so be it. But I really am hoping that we can come together on these wall signs because those are truly important to this application. If you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Yes, sir. I'll just introduce myself. Yes, sir. Chris Salamontes. I'm the project manager for the current hotel that is going up right now on Schertz Parkway. And I'm here just to answer any questions based on the owner and from our construction company as well. If y'all got any questions, we're just here. We kind of want to get something resolved here because if we wait too long, it'll kind of hold up our opening date as well. We're planning on opening within middle of November. So we're hoping to get something settled pretty quickly. Thank you.
I do.
Okay.
But I want to give everybody else a chance first. There's no plans for a pole sign sitting out there someplace by the bank or anything, no easements or anything? There's nothing telling anybody that you're there. I drove by the property probably a number of times, stopped at the bank, at the hospital over there and looked. Whatever size sign we give you, you're not going to be able to see it from the highway. The trees are in the way. I couldn't, trying to watch traffic and everything else, you will not be able to see it. There's, and coming north on 35, I looked over at the building where you planned on putting the sign and everything, and it's hard to see that. There's the building when it was white with the everything, it stuck out and everything, but now it's dark. And is that the plan, the color it's going to be? Is that dark color the way you show it in the drawings?
To that point, with the dark facades, the white signs should have that pop. And I understand the sign on the east facade, you're right. I mean, advanced visibility is going to be sparse, but that's the sign that's over the front door, so you kind of have to have a sign retail-wise.
Okay, we talk 35 north and south.
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay.
So yeah, traveling south on 30 or 35, so that would be the properties on your right-hand side, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I had to get my bearings correct. So traveling south, yeah, but that's going to be the front door of the building. When you're traveling north on 35, there is, even prior to the exit to get off of 35, there's a really good shot of that west elevate, of that elevation that a motorist is going to be able to see. And that colored sign on that elevation should have the pop because we're not going to have that freestanding sign like you spoke about. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be the one hit for the wayfinding. It's not a ton, but it's all we got.
I'm for giving hotels visibility because you've heard this speech before, and we've traveled and trying to find a hotel. and how it's marked sometimes is difficult. But I'll go along with the rest of the board or whatever they come up with down there.
I don't really have a question, but I do have a statement. I think the problem we get into with proving a variance is that we start setting precedent. And once you start setting a precedent, you really have no leverage. You're kind of stuck. You've got to set a precedent.
But
Apply that same precedent to everyone. We can't just say, okay, we're going to only allow this with hotels.
But didn't we do that with Amazon? Didn't we do a larger lettering because it was a larger building?
The code, our Unified Development Code changed to allow that. Mr. Hartzog over here. Our Unified Development Code was changed to allow larger signs on industrial buildings. Our current code.
Okay.
That's all I had to say is once you start setting that precedent, then you've lost the ability to actually remand those requirements to any other facility.
I agree 100%. I mean, we have these codes and these rules for reasons. If we start, excuse me, if we start getting away from them, it's going to get away from us, I'm afraid. So I believe, just like Ms. does, that it's something that we have to continue to follow, is what we've got written as far as our codes are concerned, based on what this project is asking for.
So based on what we're looking here, the type of building that Amazon being industrial, okay, versus that height, and what we are looking here, same thing. So we're kind of looking at maintaining our status quo, as it were, which the UDC specifies. And at this point, I agree with the rest of the board on that it is something that should fall within that category. Yes, sir.
The only thing I would say to that, and I understand the point. I mean, you definitely don't want to open up a Pandora's box situation. Absolutely. But I think that this case is going to be different than anything else that you've seen or will see, primarily because it's the four-story building. It's the hotel type of use that has these large facades. And then the other thing is this property is maintained by the PDD and an outdated UDC. If we were even following today's current UDC that the town has put in place, we would be very close. And take away the monument sign, take away the 1 foot height and directional, we'd be extremely close on the wall signs because there's no letter height restriction. The square footage on the elevation, on our longest elevation, we'd be allowed 125 square foot sign. And then the other two signs can't be more than 75% of that square footage, which is 93 square feet. No sign that we're asking for is that large. And we're talking the current UDC. So the current regulations that you have in place, our signage is less than. So it's not setting a precedent, it's allowing us to follow, I guess, what would be common planning principles that you've put in place for the rest of the community.
Thank you.
But when you started this project, you knew what you were going to be dealing with. You knew you were going to be dealing with the PDD and the 1996 code, UDC.
I could disagree with it, but I'd be lying to you. That, yeah, those regulations were in place. However, that's why this process and processes like this across the country are here for those extenuating circumstances. I think for Frost Bank, does their signage make sense? Sure. Does the hospital, does their signage make sense? Sure. But they are a vastly different type of use than we are at this location. And so, yes, the regulations were in place, but at the same time, even reading the current UDC, we were hoping that there would be the flexibility with the municipality to be able to say, hey, we've updated our standards, this makes sense. Variance could possibly be approved.
unfortunately, the way I see it is that although this particular building is 4 stories, and there's not another one in the area that's 4 stories, there may well be others in the area of Schertz, the whole city limits. And so when we look, to me, when I look at the requirements for one particular area, like this one, then I have to also think about, okay, if we set precedent and start having exceptions in this area, then why wouldn't it be reasonable that someone in another area of Schertz would think that we would do the same thing for them? And to me, you've got to do the same thing not only in that particular section of the city, but you've got to do the same thing across the whole city. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Well, I think that precedence argument is a tough one, and you know, we've got the city attorney here as well, and each case seen on a case-by-case basis. And
Right.
and I would argue that a property that's right down the street here isn't going to have the same needs as a property that's right on the highway. It's vastly different traffic. It's vastly different customers being pulled into the community. So on a case-by-case basis, which each variance is measured on, I think ours would stand alone and not, I mean, no case is ever going to be the same. So a Pandora or a precedence isn't going to be set just based on the single variance. I think there's absolutely a hardship that surrounds the way that the code applies to this property.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a recommendation, though, for you for how you handle the request. I think you need to have, and maybe Emily can help the board by putting them up individually, but I would take a separate vote on each sign because there's multiple variances on each one that are requested. They would have to actually have a hardship for each variance requested on each sign.
I'm very sorry, yeah. I'll just turn it on. Just to go over those individual ones and see where we stand with that.
Yeah, of course. So the first one is the monument sign, and the variance here would be the maximum height. So it would be, the request would be a variance for the maximum height based on the Verde PDD and the 1996 UDC requirement for the 8 feet tall.
Can we go ahead and take each one individually? Would the rest of the board agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. Let's do that.
Or at least what I'm getting at is the monument sign, we're just going to comply. I want it to comply with the current ordinances. We fight this all the time on the monument of trying to raise it higher. And we'll keep it down where it belongs. The entrance sign, keep it where it belongs. So I mean, that's just my feeling, and I think that everybody on the board agrees on that. If you don't, please say so. So how do you want to do that, Richard?
If I can ask, even though we're looking at each one individually, none of them have a hardship reason for a variance. Did I misunderstand?
I believe the proponent thinks there's a hardship, but what I'm suggesting is that these there are multiple signs, they're very different signs, and they have different variances that would be needed for any of these to be compliant. So I would recommend that you vote on each sign separately, either up or down, to grant the variance that's needed for that particular sign.
All right, let's look at it in that fashion, and I think the way to do this is if we take each specific sign right now, take a look at it and see what the status is, and perhaps staff can help with just the way that we're looking at this. So we would start with the monument sign first.
Okay.
Would that be okay? And taking a look at that and making a vote on that particular sign. Okay? Please.
Okay, so like I had said, the monument sign, the request is to allow a taller sign than what is allowed in the PDD and the 1996 UDC. So essentially the variance request here would be to allow the current monument sign as proposed, and then make the vote yes or no based on what they're currently proposing, the 8-foot tall sign with the 14 feet wide, what's currently proposed.
Okay. Versus the current UDC code of 5.6, correct?
Correct. So the Verde PDD in the 1996, so the Verde PDD stipulates back to the 1996 UDC, which states 5 feet 6 inches, and our current UDC also states 5 feet 6 inches.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we deny the request for the monument sign. We stick to the 5 feet 6 inch height.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Herzog and a second from Mr. Riley.
Aye.
Other questions? No? Okay.
I'll vote for it.
Vote.
Aye.
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 And aye, 4 ayes. The motion is denied. Okay, next.
So the next one is the directional sign. The request right now is for it to be 4 feet tall. The 1996 UDC stipulates a maximum height of 3 feet, and our current UDC stipulates a maximum height of 3 feet.
I'll make a motion that we deny this request. We stick to the 3 foot height requirement. And isn't there also something that sign has to be approved by the Public Works Director or something? Someplace?
I am not aware of that requirement.
Okay, but if there is other requirements, the sign must comply with that there also.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Herzog and a second from Mr. Riley.
Everybody know what the motion is?
He said to deny.
Right.
Okay.
Aye.
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 And aye. So the directional sign is denied the request. Next.
So the next one would be the wall sign adjacent to Schertz Parkway. They're currently requesting a 13 feet by 11 inch wide sign that's a little under 4 feet in height, with a 53 square feet in area size, with a letter and logo height of 3 feet 9 3/4 inches, which is 45.75 inches. The 1996 UDC stipulates a maximum area of 15% of wall space, or 80 square feet, whichever is less. They are under that. They are complying with that requirement. But it also stipulates a letter logo height of a maximum allowable of 18 inches. Our current UDC does not stipulate letter and logo height, and they would be under the maximum allowable of 12% of the facade area on 125 square feet. They do meet that requirement. So for this wall sign, it is a request for a variance based on the letter and logo height.
So,
That's it.
so the code also talks about logos as well as lettering. The logos can't be any.
It does not break it out. It has, give me 1 second, let me find it and I'll show it to you. It has it as minimum maximum letter / logo height. Maximum height allowed for letters or logo shall be based on the following criteria. Based on the distance from the right-of-way that this sign is proposed, they're only allowed 18 inches.
Okay. Thank you.
Distance from the right of way. Can we go back up?
Sorry.
It shows from distance from the right-of-way, huh?
I'll make a motion to deny the request.
Motion to deny from Mr. Riley.
From what I'm hearing, what's taking this out of compliance is the actual bridge-looking thing that is mixed in with the lettering itself. So the whole sign is, in essence, a logo.
Oh, the bridge.
Right, but it's the bridge. Right, each one of the letters is not pushing it. It's just that the bridge makes, if you take into consideration the bridge, then it makes, it's in essence one picture, one JPEG, for lack of a better word. Right.
So, and on this item, as far as letter and logo height goes, city staff is not opposed to that because it's not in our current UDC doesn't do it. As we had this conversation several years ago with the Amazon item in the same zoning district, part of the rationale in justifying that hardship and variance was that our UDC has changed and that we did support what is in our current UDC. And so, you know, the commission feels there is a hardship here. Yeah, staff did not have any opposition to that portion because, again,
I agree.
So the current UDC.
The old UDC is very unique in a number of variety and manners. Some things it allows a lot more, some things it's significantly more restrictive. It kind of depends on the item. Part of it and part of the way we write PDDs today is to avoid this issue where we say it has to comply with the current UDC as amended, which picks up whatever future iterations, and then the only things that are really changed are just those issues. And so with this PDD, they didn't modify that specific section. So the section that Emily showed you, that's out of the 96 code as amended, and then we readopted in 2010. And so we're in this kind of weird portion where, yeah, and that's a hard portion to potentially meet, and city staff recognizes that again. So from that perspective on this one, is compliant with the current UDC. You know, city staff.
In this particular case, I'm sorry. In this particular case, I think that I agree with staff that it would be acceptable. And I would make a motion that we approve this particular wall sign as stated.
Got to get rid of mine. Nay. Oh, nobody seconded it.
We didn't have a second.
It dies.
I apologize for that. We didn't have a second on Mr. Reynolds off. Okay, so again, move to accept the wall sign as stated.
I will second that because I can go along with that. Since we're not talking letters, we're talking about lines.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Vote from left to right
Okay.
to accept.
To accept.
Yes.
Okay. Aye.
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 Aye. 4 ayes. The motion is passed. The wall sign is accepted as stated.
So the next sign is adjacent to Schertz Parkway as well. It's the north facade. It's the same size as the just mentioned sign.
Okay. So basically, we're looking at the same type of wall sign on both. So in this case, unless we have any other questions, do we have a motion?
Where are we at? Okay, this is
We're
number
on the
4.
north side.
Okay, what's happening on number 5? Is it the same way?
No.
Oh,
It's a little larger of a sign, but it would be essentially the same request to allow for.
Okay, let's go back to 4 again.
Okay.
What square footage are we talking about?
This one is 53 square feet in area.
And what's allowed? Oh, okay, 125, okay.
Yeah.
Whichever is less.
80 square feet or whichever is less, yeah.
And that is with the, no,
That is with the maximum allowable letter logo height of 18 inches.
I'm confused.
I think that's taking out the elimination of the bridge. I mean, that's what's making it. So it's the same problem as the other sign. It's just in a different location.
Exactly. It's the exact same proposed sign as number 3. The exact same proposed sign, same size, same area as this sign, as the east facade, is being proposed on the north facade. The east and the north are the exact same sign.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Are they bigger?
No.
It's the exact same sign.
Same thing.
Bigger than, is the first one we approved? It's the exact same size. We're doing the same square footage?
Yes, it's the exact same sign, just on another elevation.
Okay, I'll make a motion. We approve both of them, 4 and 5.
Let's, again, do them separately, please.
Okay, do them separate. I'll do them separate. I'll make a motion on 4 that we approve it for what has been presented by the applicant.
Second.
Have a second from Mr. Hadji. Have a vote from left to right.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries and it is approved. Number 4 is approved.
So the next one is wall sign number 5. It's the west facade. This sign is larger than 3 and 4. It still meets the square footage allowable. So the current proposal is 65.47 square feet, which is under the 80 that's allowed. But the letter logo height exceeds the maximum allowable. So it's basically the same request as 3 and 4, just slightly larger.
I think we've got the same issue here, so I move that we approve this sign.
Motion to move from Ms. Hadji. Anybody else?
I'll second the
Comment?
motion.
And Mr. Reynolds seconds motion. Any questions?
No. Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, number 5 is approved.
So the last one, the Verde PDD does stipulate that they're only allowed 2 signs, two exterior signs, 1 wall sign and 1 freestanding sign. So y'all have just approved them having 3 wall signs. So the proposal would be to allow for a total of 5 signs to be located on site. The 3 wall signs would obviously have those variances granted to have the increased height. And y'all did make a recommendation and denied the monument sign and the directional sign being larger. However, this request is truly just to say they are allowed to have more than their 2 on-premise signs. Does that make sense?
This particular item should have been taken first, I think. I think it would have helped.
The way that this was presented, I'm sorry to say, is that it just kind of backwards, if you will. Because if the UDC code specifies 3, am I right?
So the Verde PDD specifies 2. In our current code, they would be allowed the 3 wall signs, a monument sign, and the directional sign.
Okay.
In our current standards, they would be allowed to have the 5 signs that they're requesting if they met all of the height and size requirements, location requirements.
All right, so what we're saying here is the first 2 that we rejected, okay, those signs will not be placed. Is that correct?
So
They will not be placed in the dimensions that
that
Or
they had
requested.
proposed in the larger than what is allowed.
Okay.
If y'all approve this
Three-
request.
Okay, question. What happens if they have a pole sign? Is that also considered part of the signs, or is a pole sign separate? I know you aren't, but if you want to keep your monument sign and a pole sign is offered, is part of the number of signs.
So pursuant to the Verde PDD, they're allowed one freestanding sign, which we consider a monument sign a freestanding sign. We also consider a pole sign a freestanding sign. So they get one.
And then can they have the other three on the building?
So they are allowed to have one wall sign on the building under the PDD. Under the current UDC, they're allowed to have one primary and two secondaries, which is what's up here. So the primary is the largest sign, and the other two that are secondaries can be 75% of the largest sign on the walls. So wall signs separate from freestanding ground signs.
Okay, well, all we did on the monument sign was we said the height requirement on it. If he's out signing himself, that's up to him. That's up to them. If they want to take and have the monument sign, then pull one sign off the building, right? No?
No, they're allowed one, so it's here on,
Okay.
They're allowed one wall
Yeah.
sign and one freestanding sign. That the Verde PDD stipulates they can have one wall sign and one freestanding sign, and that's it for the property. In our current UDC, we would allow 3 wall signs, a monument sign, the monument sign, and the directional sign. We would currently allow all 5 signs that they have presented, that they have proposed, we would allow them, assuming they met all the rest of the requirements.
specifically in number of signs.
3 wall signs that we have approved, okay? Now, the monument sign and the secondary sign, those 2 can be put up. Is that what you were saying just a little while ago?
So under the existing PDD, as it exists today, the allowance is for a monument sign, right, and 1 wall sign.
The current one.
What the provisions of the Verde Enterprise PDD are. Under our current UDC, which is different, because again, remember this uses the 96 UDC as amended, additionally with some specifications as to specific signage, the commercial section. So as the property exists today, by right, they're allowed 1 wall sign, 1 freestanding sign. Okay? That's a combination of the zoning district and the old Unified Development Code. Under our current Unified Development Code, they're allowed a freestanding sign and 3 wall signs, 1 primary and 2 secondary, which are 75% of the primary.
Can we give them that? That's what we are, basically what we've already done.
Right. And that's pretty much where we'll stand.
Yeah, so the variances you have previously approved have to do with height of letters.
Signage.
So there was an old code that says, that was that table that she showed you earlier. That has to do with distance from the right-of-way. That exists nowhere in our current code. Our current code, we give you a maximum area, and how you choose to fill that area is totally up to you. You want letters, you want logos, whatever you want, so long as that area, you can't exceed that area.
We've approved the style of the sign, we just haven't approved to allow them to put them on the.
Yes, so what you have approved so far is the maximum, you are allowing a variance to the maximum logo and letter height to allow an unstipulated height. But you've not altered the area of the signs. And with this, we are altering the number and specifying specific requirements for the area of those signs that the that 2 of the 3 signs being proposed must be 75% of the largest.
What do we need?
At this point, okay, let's take a look at, I just want to make sure that we've got it covered, and Mr. Santee, maybe you can kind of, the 3 wall signs are acceptable, and they can go ahead with them, correct?
We haven't
Wait.
given them permission to do that yet. We're given them permission
Now,
to justify
The
not
next,
to do it.
the 2 other signs, the monument sign and the other sign, were rejected for signage type, size, or whatever it might be. In this particular one, the requirement is that all businesses shall be permitted 2 exterior signs and 1 wall sign, or that, I'm sorry, it's 2 exterior signs on the premises, that representing 1 wall sign and 1 freestanding sign. Is that correct?
Yes.
You can have 1 wall sign, 1 freestanding sign.
If the board is acceptable to this, and I'll look over at Dan and see, he probably gives me a mean eyeball, if we can take like a 5 or 10 minute recess, I'm happy to pre-write some motions as I understand the board looking to accomplish with this as some options for you to ensure that you are understanding what you are approving and how it is being presented. Is that
If that's necessary, I mean, what they're requesting the 5 signs that have been presented, right? And the only thing that was denied was the height of 2 of those signs. If the board wants to allow the 5 signs that were presented as they've been approved up to this point, all they have to do is grant a variance to allow 5 signs consisting of the 3 wall signs, the monument sign, and the directional sign, as they've been approved. Because the monument sign and the directional sign can't exceed the maximum height allowed in the code. They'll be 5'6", right? I mean, but they can still approve them being there. I just don't think it's that difficult. I mean, it's all you need is a motion to approve a variance to allow 5 signs.
so? Or in this case, it would be 3 wall signs.
Yeah, 3 wall signs, a monument sign, directional sign, as presented.
Okay, so then basically what we'll do is approve as presented and as taken in this case, correct?
So the only caveat I have for you on this, and Dan, help me out in the language here. The 2 secondary wall signs that have been presented are 53 square feet, which is 4 square feet larger than what would be allowed under
Right.
the 75% requirement.
Those are not.
We are kind of changing,
Okay.
Well, the
So yeah, so Emily pointed out, sorry. Pursuant to the 96 UDC, the maximum area was 15% or 80 square feet, whichever is less.
Which the current wall sign proposal meets.
So if the board is looking to approve 3 wall signs, you meet that, and all 3 wall signs would all have to be 15% or 80 square feet of the facade as a maximum, whichever is less. Which the signs that they have, that they are all proposing, meet that with a 65.47 square foot sign and 2 53-foot square signs. So to Dan's point, if you want to approve the wall sign package as presented, that can be a motion.
So the current UDC would allow all 5 signs?
Yes, the current UDC would allow you to have 5 signs. So directional signs are based on square footage of interior area. So how big is your business? You get a different amount for every so many, and I want to say it's 1 for every 20 or 30,000 square feet, if my memory serves me off the top of my head, which they're only asking for 1. They would be allowed to have 1 freestanding sign, whether that's a pole sign or a monument sign. And they would be allowed to have a primary sign, which would be actually a larger size of it would be a 12% or 125 square feet, whichever is less for the primary sign, and then 75% of that for the other two. So they could actually make the largest sign larger in order to allot for their 53-foot smaller signs. So it's a...
So let me, I'm sorry. Pardon? So we're allowing them to change which UDC code they're working under by making these changes.
You're not changing the UDC that they're working under. You would be
We're changing
motioning
it.
for an approval of a variance to allow 3 wall signs as presented, which would allow them to have one sign at 65.47 square feet, one sign at 53 square feet, and one sign at 53 square feet on the appropriately sized facades.
So what we're doing is disregarding this PDD.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we're just ignoring the PDD.
I'll get it over.
All right, at this point, we will take it in that fashion that the 3 wall signs have been approved. The 2, the monument and the other sign, have not been approved. Is that?
Are you saying only the size of it?
Yes.
So far, what has been done in motion for is a denial of a request for a taller monument sign, and we have approved requests for 3 signs to not have a restriction as to the height and size of the logo or letter. They still are required to meet the same area requirement.
I disagree. I don't think that was what was approved. What they approved was what was requested, which wasn't unlimited. I mean, what you put up here is part of the request. That size was not unlimited.
Correct. The size of the sign to meet the 53 square feet for 2 of them, for the signs 3 and 4, and sign 5 at 65.47 square feet. Does that moot this issue entirely then?
I don't know what issue you're referring to. I mean, but they did not approve an unlimited size to those signs.
Yes.
They approved based on the site plan, the sign plan that was submitted.
Exactly. Okay, does that make sense to everybody, I guess? All right? Yes? Okay, any other questions? Comments?
Do we need anything else?
No.
Motion?
Yeah,
I think that's
yes. The last request that is been made is to exceed the number of signs. So, they're still requesting a monument sign and a directional sign. They can't get them the size they requested, but they're still requesting those. But even to allow the 3 wall signs, the size of which you've approved, would also require an approval of something, some way that they can exceed the maximum allowed by the PDD. So you still need a variance to the maximum number of signs. How many you vary that to is up to the board.
So you can motion to approve a total of 5 signs for this sign
Period.
as proposed. And now we're locked into what you've seen, what's been proposed.
I move that we approve 5 signs for this location, the 3 wall signs as previously approved in size, and the size of the monument sign and the directional sign not to exceed what the PDD calls for.
Okay, that makes sense. Second, anyone?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a second, Mr. Herzog, and a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. You're welcome. That's all right. Okay. At this point, we'll have a workshop discussion, and I do apologize. I am going to have to excuse myself. So I will turn this over to David. Be able to take care of that. Okay. Thank you very much.